So good morning, everyone. It is March 10th, 2021, and you are here for improving research skills with Google Keep. So we're just going to get right into it. So Google Keep is one of my absolute favorite tools. I tell this to people all the time, like if I ever start or want to become a Google innovator, I really want Google Keep to somehow be involved in what I do with that. So Google Keep is really just a pile of Post-its. I'm going to pull out my Post-it pile right here. It's a pile of Post-its on steroids. You see that they all just kind of populated in, and they're kind of moving around. I keep trying to clean it. Every time I train, I seem to get an empty note in there. So it's just Post-its, and they kind of go on and on and on and on and on forever because it's kind of my like Post-its everywhere, but I have the ability to organize them. So I have loved Google Keep since I found it. I use it for to-do lists. I use it for things that have to get done. By the way, these are all finished. I can actually delete that note. Ooh, right? So I take pictures in it. I use it with my phone. You can see right here, I have a set of my attestations are in here because I actually have to keep a screenshot of them on my phone. Then when I'm done with them for the week, I send a whole week of them to Google Keep, and then I can just I can push them out of the way. It's just awesome. It's a great tool. But there's other pieces of it that really just make it even better. And one of them is the Google Keep extension. So what I've done here is I've given you the link to the extension. You can click right on it, and it's going to take you into the extension. I'll show you what it looks like. This is going to bring you into the web store. You're going to be able to install it. I always like to say to people, when you're looking at extensions to use, you always want to look at things that have 4 or more stars because those are very well vetted by other people, and that there are more than like 1,000 users. I do have people come and say, well, I really want to use this. And I'm like, oh, look, 12 people have used it. Why don't we wait a little bit and see if it's something better? This is used by over 7 million people. I think we're good to go. So when you install it, it comes in up here and you can see it's right there. It will be, once I click on it, it's going to be yellow. So I now have a yellow extension. Delete. I'm going to delete that. So if you don't see it, just a little bit of a review of extensions, it'll install over here. And if you don't see it, I'm going to unpin it. It comes into this puzzle piece. Now, this is kind of a newer feature for Google. It's within the browser. It's newer, I want to say, probably in this school year. So people get a little confused and they're not really sure where it is. So I always like to show it because it's easier to find. So I'm going to actually click on the puzzle piece, and then I'm going to go see, I'm going to find my extension, and it's right there, Google Keep Chrome extension. I'm going to pin it. The minute I pin it, it comes back into my list of extensions, but I'm going to move it. So this is a super important extension. I would say these like 6 right here are what I use the most. So my Bitly, my Screencastify, my Extensity, my Google Keep, my Bitly, my Keep Awake. Those are the things that I use all the time. So I always just move it so it's where I want it to be. So it's I like to customize my stuff and I like to have it at my fingertips. So let's use a Keep extension, and we're going to kind of explore what how to use it. So some just basics of Google Keep. You have a title, you have a note section, you have some components over here. This is how you add a collaborator. So basically sharing a note. And the collaborator can edit with you. They have edit in view. You can add pictures, you can change colors, you can archive things. So when you archive them, they go out of sight around the corner into the filing cabinet that you can't see. And you can also add labels. Excuse me, I have like a hair in my face. You have labels. That's what these all are. These are all labels that I have created around certain ideas. And why is that important? Because when I archive things, they go affiliated with these labels, and then I can search for them. So that's a really great feature, and it's actually one of the things we're going to use today as well. So I can also, in here, when I'm in a note, I can like add drawings, these labels, and also check boxes. But since we're talking about research, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to actually use the Google Keep extension while we research. And I am going to go out to Google, and what I need from you guys, one of you, Michelle or Megan or Kristen, I don't really care. I need one of you to give me a topic. So whoever pops in first, you get to go first. Otherwise, I'm going to pick my own. Come on, somebody. Crickets, crickets, crickets. Somebody give me something. Qualitative topics of, wow. Really, Michelle? I don't even know what that is. Okay.
That's my topic for grad school today.
Qualitative topics of science research. Okay, I'm going to put that right here. Okay, so let's first of all, before we go to do research, I've created this document that please feel free to use with your students. After I found it last night, I couldn't remember what I had called it. So it's called like how to like basically judging a reputable site. Like what does it look like? And these are some of the skills that we need to teach our students and our adults, how to have some really focus on digital literacy. What does it mean to be able to look at a site? And I'm going to use some of these skills as I'm going through this next step. So we're going to look at site extensions, right? We're going to look at the affixes. I used to call them suffixes. They're now called affixes. Like what sites do we know are really good when we're talking about documents, right? Site extensions, govs, edus, things like .orgs, .nets versus a com, right? Look for expertise. Are they experts? Stay away from commercial sites. Beware of bias. So when we talk about media literacy, this is a whole nother thing, right? Some students are really, really good at it. Some of us look at us like we have four heads, right? No, it's really okay if I go to this one. I'm like, yeah, because he's like 3 people follow him. Yeah, that's really good. Let's look at that, right? Check dates. So always important when I'm looking up data or YouTube videos, I'm always looking for like the latest and greatest YouTube video because it's going to make a difference, especially if I'm looking for context of how a tool is used. Consider how it looks. Is the design reputable or is it poorly designed? We don't want things from anonymous. We want to check links. So we want to make sure that things go together. This comes later. Check the facts. And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So those are a couple things. All right. So in our first little set here, we're going to do what I call individual research. So this green set is like one of the ways that you can do this research. So our first thing we're going to do, I'm going to really try this, qualitative topics of science research. I don't know what that means, Michelle. There's too many big words. What am I looking for? Give me a clue here.
So there's 2 ways that we look at data, right? Quantitative is about numbers, qualitative is about like observation. So we're looking about ways that we can observe things to do science research.
Okay. How about I change this to observation methods, only because I know what you're saying. Let's try that one. I want to get a broad enough view when I start. So I am going to show you how I do this like real. So I'm going to hit enter. Kristen, I want you to put me on a clock, okay? I want you to give me 1.5 minutes. That's it. I'm going to be brutal to myself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to only look for quality. That's all I care. You ready? Here we go, Kristen. Off we go. And I'm going to do reputable sites as I go. Okay, scholarly, I'm going to move past this to start with. Types of observations and methods, scientific method. So I'm looking at it, sciencing.com. Okay, this might look good. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to open in a new tab, and I'm just going to continue to go. I'm not looking at it. Next one, scientific method, EDU, Stanford Encyclopedia. Okay, maybe. Oh, I'm going to keep going. Types of observation. Ooh, that one looks even better. Although it's a .com, I will check it to see later when I come in. I'm not as worried about making sure it's perfect. Scientific method, you give me the perfect one because there's no ads at the beginning, Michelle. I mean, usually I have to deal with ads. Scientific method, I'm going to stay away from Wikipedia. Although I typically stay away from Wikipedia. You see a lot of districts have Wikipedia blocks, so you don't get that far. Observation research, not going to work. I'm not interested in psychology, the role of observation science. That might be kind of a good one. Scientific method, probably not. So I'm going to go to the next page. Okay. For most of you, you would be shocked if your kids got by the first page of Google, right? I'm not worried about if these are any good at this point. I am only interested in quantity. That's a .com. Psychology, you notice I'm reading this, that's a dot. It is, but I'm maybe not psychology. Online library, yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. Steps, okay, maybe.
And time.
Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna open that one. So you notice that I just did quantity, okay? Because the problem that we have with our students, I'm gonna close Google Keep. The problem that we have with our students is they just take the first three. And I always say to people, give your kids a lot of time. So 10 minutes for research. They can't do that process as fast as I can unless they've been trained to do that process. So this is, you have to train them. And what's a reputable site? Okay, and when we're doing this, we're more interested in quantity. So you gave me a minute and a half, so I had to find, and my rule of thumb is the number of minutes times 3 for a student. Now for me, I can typically, this is how I research, by the way, I typically can do 10 a minute. So I'm literally doing one every 6 seconds, okay? So I think I was being nice when I said, I'm giving them 20 seconds to have that thought process. You want to take the number of minutes times 3. You might decide to do times 2. So you want them to come out with 20 links. You notice I didn't look at any of them. Not one of them, okay? Because my first step is quantity. My second step is I'm going to save them to keep. All I did was open them. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. Okay. I'm on this site, which is really weird because it did, this was my search site. I'm here. Here's my first one. I'm going to save it to keep. I'm going to click on keep. Okay. And I'm done. I'm going to close it. Going to the next one. I'm going to save it to keep. There it is. I'm going to close it. You're going to see what this looks like in a minute. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to save it to keep. This process is super fast, right? I'm going to do this one. I'm going to save it to keep. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to save it to keep. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to save it to keep. They're all done. Now I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to close to the right. Okay, then I'm going to go to keep. So what happened here? So they all saved to my Google Keep. And here they are, right? Straight across. So what I've just done is I've cut down on that first start. Because what happens is when students go and do research, they go to the first site they see on the Google search, and they just dive into that, and they just assume that everything in there is golden. So what I've done is I've given them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm through my second step, which is save to keep. And you notice, pretty simple, right? 5 minutes total. That probably took me 30 seconds. So you can either click on the tab, click on the extension, close the tab, or you can just move your way across the tabs, go to the one before and close all to the right. That's speed because we want them to be efficient. Now what we would do, the next step, we would go into quality. We're going to evaluate each site saved within Google Keep. And I might put a little subset in here. I might put a little italics label, because this can be your decision. Do I want to add a label to these? Because that might be super helpful to me. I might decide I want to label them. I also might decide I want to pin them across the top. So we're going to go back up in here on my Keep. I have 6 of them. So I might come here to my 3 dots and add a label. and I'm just going to call it research. I'm going to call it scientific research. My Google Keep is probably going to have a little bit of a mental shake. It's going to be like, you're not smart enough for this, Virginia. And I'm going to be like, yeah, you're totally right. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do this one. And I'm going to add a label, and I'm just going to start to type scientific, and it's right there. It's going to add it. So I'm probably going to do this to each one of them. What's the benefit of this? Because if you're using this a lot, you can have them all labeled. So you see, all it's doing is adding that little label. It's going to make a lot of sense in a minute. Scientific, add a label. So this is a little bit more work. Totally worth it. Totally worth it, especially if students are going to use this for multiple things. Now, I have them. I'm going to actually archive them all. So she's like, whoa, what are you doing? Trust me, it'll make sense when I show you what I'm doing. I'm going to archive them all, and then I'm going to go into my label that has the name scientific research, because they're all going to be together on one page. Because I'm going to just clean it up. It's down here. Here it is. So there they all are. Just boom, bam, all together in one little space. Now what I would do is I would go into this, click on this right here, and I'd start to look at it. I would set myself in an alarm for 2 minutes. So give me 30 seconds, Kristen. We're going to do a couple of them really fast. Just tell me move, move, move every time. I'll do 3 of them. So I'm going to look through here, and I'm going to say, okay, looking at this, oh my gosh, Michelle, I have no idea if this is any good. So I'm just going to kind of judge, although there's a lot of science in here, way beyond my world, although it's called sciencing, which is like the world's best topic, right? So I can kind of go through and look and say, okay, this looks like it has a lot of features in here, which may be very valuable to me. It does have the difference between quantitative and qualitative. I'm going to click on the keep icon, and I'm going to take a note. Quantitative versus qualitative. And I'm going to put videos included. So I'm taking notes actually on my Google Keep, right? So I'm not doing a lot of diving. I'm saying, okay, this one looks really good. Subdivisions. I know that's probably not the right word. Always have to get a science person. So it's just hard work here. Hard work for a non-sciencey person. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to move faster. I'm going to go to the next one here. So this is, I came back to keep. I open the next one up. And I can come into this one. It'll open. When I click
30 seconds.
When I click on the keep, it's going to open up my original bookmark that I made. It's going to allow me to take notes on this. So this might have good information in here, and and I might decide, yeah, this one's not so great because it's more about philosophy. I didn't see that. I'm going to come back
5 seconds.
and I can delete this note. So now I'm down to 5. Okay. So I continue that process along. So Kristen, you were great at that. Thank you. So that process of putting them on the clock, putting them on the clock, putting them on the clock. So why do we do that? It's great time management for our students who are probably not good at time management. Some students are going to need a little bit more. Some are going to need a little less. What do I do when I'm past my time? I move on to the next one because they're going to have 30 to get through, right? So if they got 30, if they got 20, and you gave them 2 minutes, it's one class period. They're basically really curating through their information, they're organizing their thought process, and they're kind of moving through that process. Okay, so say I'm down to my next. So I've gone from quantity, I've saved them, I've gone to quality. Now I can dig into them. So let's see, these are the 5 I have. I took some basic notes. So now I can come back in here. I can click on this. It will open up the site again. And I can do some bigger, deeper research in here. And by clicking on my Google Keep extension, I can take notes right in here. So for me, this replaces, the index cards of old. I was just saying this to one of my friends the other day. We used to do research when we were teaching together, and we used to use index cards, right? Pretend this is an index card. And it always frustrated me, the number of kids that would lose their index cards, right? You'd be like, seriously? And they'd come like 3 days of class and you'd give them 3 new sets of index cards. And we never got past that process. Can't lose these. I mean, you could delete them, but it's a lot of work to go and do that. So these are all right there digital. On any device they're on, they could be at home working on it. They could be looking at it right there. They could be Chromebook, desktop. As long as they're logged into their Google account, into their Chrome, they'll have access to this. So I love this method just because it cleans that up. So now there's another trick that you can do in here, which is like fabulous. Let's say let's go back into this one because this one I've been in a lot. And I really like this image right here. And I'm like, okay, and I know this is not a great one, but I can click all the way into an image. Let's see if I can find one. Eggshells represent, sure they do. Let's go into here. And let's say I want to grab this and push this out to maybe, I want to see, is there a link? Can I grab this link? So I can actually grab the link. So I know I'm going to use Twitter, which you don't necessarily have to use, but let's say I want to share this with someone. And of course, it's not going to let me. You can take this and you can vet it. I think that's not about you. That's about me trying to do too many things with a device that's like, yeah, no, you're not going to do that. You can grab the link and you can put that into a Keep. You can also grab an image. So I want to find here's a good image, but these are going to load. You can load an image in as well. Let's say I'm out on a website that has an image. Any of these have images that might be good? Let's say, oh, one of those was Wikipedia, wasn't it? And Wikipedia will have an image right there. And Wikipedia images, by the way, are common. My brain just went on vacation. Yep. It'll come to me. They're able for you to use. Let's say I want this image right here, and I go all the way in. I want that black in the background, and then I can click on my Google Keep, and it's going to save this picture of Aristotle. It's going to put it into my Google Keep. He's going to load right onto my main page. He's right here, right? I think he's right there. Maybe he is. Yep. And I'm going to add a label to it. I'm going to put that scientific research on there. So now why would that be important? So I'm going to close it, and I'm actually going to archive it. When I archive it back, it's going to feed into that page I was on before with the scientific research, but then my image is right there. Now, it was hard to tell that that was an image, but when I click on it, it's going to take me back to it. So the trick of doing that is making sure you do it with the black background. You have to get it all the way to a black background so you can just see the image. So, and what's also really nice is when I'm using the Keep extension to do that, I'm getting the original location of that. Okay, so that's the beginning of all that, but it's going to make more sense in a second. So now I'm all done with my research. Now what do I do with it, right? I have them on these like digital note cards. How do I get them where I want it to be? So I can go into a Google Doc and I can open up a new Google Doc, and I'm going to call it scientific research over here on the side. Yeah. I have no clue. Thanks, Michelle. Now I have to look up scientific research, right? And I'm going to take out the like untitled document.
It's great to learn new things.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I'm a music teacher by trade, so, you know, science, I had a science lab partner. I still, 35 years later, I still tell her she got me through science class. She's now a science professor. And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely not. So I can come over here into my right-hand side and I click on Keep. And I can look for my notes, and I'm going to say scientific research. Oh, I know why. Let's do, so I'm going to teach you a little trick. I did it kind of backwards, sorry. I have them archived. I'm going to unarchive them. I'm going to do all my research with them archived, and then I'm going to unarchive them because I want them available to me. When they're archived, I can't pull them into a doc. I like the archiving for organizational structure, but when I want to pull them into a doc like this, I need them not archived. So this is the one I took the notes on. So let's say I have great notes in here and I come into my dot menu and I push them and I tell it to add to document. So any notes that I may have taken are going to be added into my document. Probably be better notes than that. And I also can push in, let's see, where did the image go? So right in here, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to add to document. So that is just the link to the image that I want. But what I love about this is I can come up here and insert an image, right? And I can do it by URL. So I can do this. And now, oh yeah, there really is an image at there. Oh, that's weird because it's always worked for me in the past. I wonder what, oh, I bet you there's a space. Let's see. I might be lying to you. Huh. I bet you have to go the other way. So just let, you know, sometimes it's easy. Let's see if it will go all the way in. Let's try it this way. Copy, and we'll put it in this way. Insert image. Wow, my brain. From my URL, this is that head tip. Yeah, that won't go. So I don't know why that doesn't work. That's strange. Tried it yesterday twice and it worked for both. So I'm strange that that one doesn't work. But just know that you can do that, I promise. It is also just a great way to know that you can get your images that way. I mean, the student could go back in, could save the image as, and still has the, that's new too. So that's a whole new piece in here within Wikipedia. So Creative Commons, I told you that word would come back to me. Creative Commons exists within Wikipedia. So that's where all our files that we can save pictures that are copyright free sit in there. So they could grab that picture, use that, and it's simple enough to use. So pulling those research notes in is one way. So you can use it, you can use that in here. They could either write full topic sentences in here or just pull them in and then organize them as they see fit. They can put them into a graphic organizer, whatever they need to, they can do it that way. They can also pull those into a slides presentation. So if you wanted to come in and they wanted to pull that information into a slide deck, they can do that as well. So they can come and here's the keep. Same thing as before, then the newest will populate to the top. You will just tell it to add to slide and that information will feed right in, actually in a way that makes sense because it will actually feed in your lines as bullets. Quantitative, I can't spell. So that's like the first set. So this is what I call like individual research. So the way to kind of go through one step that I did forget in quantity, it's not a step that I forgot. If you get 30% of what you started with, that's pretty good. You know, usually you can do a little, the better you get at looking at reputable sites, teaching students that process, the better you get at that, the more you'll get. If you get to 50, that's great. But just having a site for site is not the best thing to do, but learning that process takes time. So let's look at the other method, which is very similar, but it's just for a group. So if you want to do some collaborative research for your students, you're going to start with step one. So you'll come in here and I'm going to archive these again, get rid of them all out of the way, and then we'll have them gone. And then we'll start again with a new topic. So let's say I'm going to do my favorite. I'm going to do cheetahs. Okay, I'm going to do like animals of some kind, and I'm going to create the first thing. I have a cheetah label already that I'm going to use, but I'm going to make another label as well. So I'm going to do cheetah. I'm going to title them off the bat. Cheetah habitat is going to be my first one. I'm going to pin it. And that's going to, when I pin it, it's going to stay across the top. And I'm just going to enter. So, so we'll talk about where they live, right? And I'm going to put that in here. I'm going to close it. That one's done. That's my first one done. Then I'm going to make another one. And I'm going to call it cheetah diet. Close. I'm also going to pin it. I'm going to close it. I'm going to do one more. We'll do cheetah predators. I'm not sure there are any cheetah predators. So let's say that I end up predators. Why it is so hard to spell today. And I'm also going to pin this one. Now I can put the cheetah label with each one of them if I want to. Now, if I had made my label first, I could also make them directly in this region and they will automatically. So if I make one in here, you'll notice if I make the label first and make the note in there, it will come with that label on it. So that's another little trick that you can use. But let's say I have these all done, I label them up. I could make cheetah predators, cheetah diet, cheetah habitat, so they were each different sub tabs under here. You can't sub tab them, but you can, or sub label them, but you can make those labels separate. Now I would add my collaborators. So I might add, let's say like this, I'm going to put all the people in my group in here. So there's one, save, and then I'm going to add another person. Let's say I add in Erica Preston. She's another one of my colleagues. We both would do this and save. And I would do this to each one of these. Now, why would I do this? Because there's 3 of us. We're going to do this research, but we're only going to do these 3 pieces. This is like real life. Like we work on a big topic together. We divide and conquer, and we're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to look, we're all looking for cheetah information, but I'm focusing on predators. One of them is focusing on diet, and one of them is focusing on habitat. So let's say I go out and I start to do my research and I look for cheetah, and I just look for cheetah, right? And I start to look and I'm like, okay, cheetah, I know that maybe this one's good. And I say, I look at this and I say, okay, there's information in here, right? And I'm doing, this one's a little different because this one might be for older kids working together, and we kind of look through these pieces and we say, okay, there's a little bit about everything. They can copy this web address, and I just came up here and did Control C. I could also just right click and click copy, and then I'm going to come out here and I'm going to come into this note and I'm going to paste the link. I'm going to close it. Because that link is good for all of these, I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to paste the link into all of them. But I'm really focused on predators, but saying I'm working on predators and like Erica's working on diet. So I'm working all the way through, but I find something in my article that really is not applicable to me, but it's applicable to diet. And I can push the link to her keep. So you kind of use the same process as you work your way through. So I did my keeps, I added collaborators, then I start to work on quantity. So you can do it the same way I did before, open them up in a separate tab, and then start to copy and paste the URLs onto the correct keep by the way they did. I just did it a little differently. So if they get through and they get to like all the keeps, but they don't have enough for habitat, they can spend a couple minutes and they can focus right on that one. And then students can start to research on their own, and they can push that information to a Google document or a Google slide. So one of the things I like about this, it's kind of the same process. And then you come through and you create your product after you've done your research. When you do it like that, you're allowing students to learn from each other, which I think is a huge life skill. They're helping each other, and they're also becoming an expert in one area, which I think is great. And it's really, when we look at science especially, it's really weird, Michelle, that you're here, because science was kind of a little bit of my focus. When you look at this, this is how scientists, they start really global and then they kind of focus all the way in. It's the same kind of thing here. They're really kind of focusing their way in. They each have a separate task. They're working for the greater good, but they're all focusing on one task. So I love that. And that really just cuts your presentation time, your research time down too, because they're only learning about one piece and then they're working in more of a collaborative nature. Students don't get hung up on one thing, and that's helpful. So I'm almost done. So here's a couple tricks. Use those labels. Those are going to be super helpful as you're researching through a topic. You know, pin the last research tab. So the last research that you're doing, you may want to pin those across the top. Then when you're done with them, you can either archive them down with a label or you can delete them. You don't necessarily have to keep them, right? You can delete things easily. A really great trick is if you have a student that struggles, they can come in and they can add you in here as a collaborator. So you can kind of see where they are and how they're moving along, and you can read their information. It's a little bit of work for them to do that. They get used to it pretty easily. You can't like create a label that adds you in. You have to be added to each note. But if you are with students and they're like struggling and you say to them, hey, I noticed you don't have a lot on diet. Why don't you add me as a collaborator to that note, and I'll help you find a couple of resources that you'll be able to dig in through. That's a great way because we're really assisting them, kind of the guide on the side instead of just giving them all that information. All right. So here's like a time frame. Now, it's not perfect, but think about 1 day for those pre-research skills, which is like step 1, step 2, and the start of step 3. So a total of 40 minutes. What I have seen some people do in the past is they will do step 1 and step 2 on the last part of the day before they're going to start their big research. So they'll go for quantity and then they'll save them all to keep. Then they're kind of done for that day. And then the next day they'll come in and they're going to go look for that quality. They're going to go into the research. They're going to look for the quality. You know, they have students like, what are you looking for? You know, you've done your quantity. You have a whole pile of them. Now we're going to really go through with a fine-tooth comb and look to make sure they're good. And take some basic notes in the keep as you go, but I want you to move from keep to keep to keep when the buzzer goes off. Definitely use a timer. And then you will go through and you'll do 1 to 2 days of product creation. You notice this is a huge decrease, right? I'm talking about maybe 1 day for research, 1 day for research, 2 days for creation, 1 day for presentation. This is 5 days. I've seen people do research for 3 weeks and they don't come out with anything. I've seen people use this method and they just get a lot more done. Excuse me. Part of it is the fact that you can automatically pull those notes right into your Google products, and that really does help. So this last one is really important. I know that every English teacher in the world is probably going to have my head, but I would rather see everybody in motion looking at presentations than one student presenting. I think you can lead up to that. I know what I used to do. I'm so used to presenting now, it doesn't bother me. But when I was younger, I used to have huge stage fright. So that was a huge issue for me to be in front of people talking. I did not like it. So you can get rid of some of that anxiety if everybody's talking at the same time. So if we're ever in a face-to-face environment again, ever, for all of us, you can put devices around the room and you can have people rotate around the room. And what you do is you actually leave a couple Post-its by there, and the students can do what they call a peach and a pit. And they can have a peach, or they can divide the piece of paper in half. So a peach is something awesome. A pit is a wonder. Like, what did they do great about it? Like, and this is like a gallery walk almost. So the students can go through and they can really judge and say, like, I love that creation. I love the way it looks. It's really interesting. So I like and I wonders. And you can use 2 different colors of Post-its. You can divide your Post-its in half. They're anonymous in nature. And then the students can collect those. They can make changes to their presentation if they want to, or they can use it as feedback. It's a great way to do it. It's a really neat way to see it, and everybody's working the whole time. Everybody's engaged. Now, if we're not in a face-to-face environment, you can do the same kind of thing in breakout rooms. You can have a document that has the presentations in there where the creators of the documents are never there. It's just the document is being watched by multiple people. I think that's a presentation of presentations is always a great thing to see. Okay, so that is really like improving skills, right? So doing quantity be a cool way to do a do now to get a class. Or yeah, I like that, Michelle. It's a great way. Great. Women inventors. Ooh, that was a good one too, right? So these are all just different options of ways to use a Google tool that's free for you with that Google Keep extension. Really helps you like narrow down some of these things. And that quantity teaching reputable sites, taking the time and teaching that's not a huge lesson, but taking kids and teaching them how to be digitally literate, teaching them to really think about what they're looking at is so important. Okay, guys, I'm all done. Any questions? I'm going to stop recording. Thank you.